There we go. And I can just leave this on all the time, right? Thank you. Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
We have one discussion item to add. It's the small piece of paper in front of you. So that'll be added at the end of the item, the discussion, if you would like to include it.
So it'd be number 6? Oh, way down there.
Yep,
All right, okay, so it'd be number 12.
or I guess 11 and 12 is,
11?
Yep.
Number 11.
and current 11 would switch to 12.
Current 11 is, will be
Building
number
permit.
12 then. Got it.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with that adjustment.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, motion carried. All right, what's the next thing? Approval of the minutes.
I have one little thing on the minutes.
Could we get your microphone?
On the minutes, in the paragraph that begins, a public. give me a
Public
second.
hearing was held,
Yeah,
the conditional use paragraph.
it has Commissioner Noem's name spelled wrong. That's, let me see where it is.
Neon. Yeah.
Oh, it's the first one, not the second one. The
Mhm.
first one.
Third line from the bottom.
Right. It has it NEOM instead of NOEM. I'd like to have that changed.
I'll second with that
Yeah.
change.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the minutes as amended. All in favor, say aye.
I,
All opposed? Motion carried. Next thing is public comments. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to stand up and say anything about anything for up to 5 minutes? If you're on the agenda, you can probably wait until the agenda item comes up, but otherwise, I don't see anybody rushing to the podium, so we will be done with that. Now, we have to reconvene the Planning and Zoning Board and make it the Board of Adjustment. Do I need a motion to adjourn, no, or to, yeah? I need,
motion that we adjourn planning and zoning and move on to the Board of Adjustment.
second? A motion and a second to move on to the Board of Adjustment agenda. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Any discussion? Motion carried. We have the call to order. Can we just use the roll call from, that we already had, because nothing has changed? So I call this meeting to order. The approval of the agenda of the Board of Adjustment. We need a motion on that. A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carried. And now we have a variance application for 1100 East Holly Boulevard. You can go to page 6 in your packets to find that. Is there anyone here to speak to that and tell us what you want to do?
So,
Yep.
just to provide some context for this variance, this is a general business lot. The normal setbacks in general business are front 25, side 7, rear 5. In this situation, they do a residential property on the west and the north. So that would take the side yard setback on the left side of the lot, the west side, to 15 feet, and the right side would stay the same at the 5, and the rear side would go from 5 to 20 because it abuts a residential behind it. So the rule is that parking spaces and access aisles can't be in the setback.
So if you can just say your name and address, please.
My name is Regan Duval. I am here representing Jan's Corporation and also Horizon Pet Care. That's whose property it is. You guys will have to bear with me. I have never done this before, but I just wanted to kind of briefly explain our project and the site conditions. I sent some photos to you earlier, so hopefully you had a chance to look at them, and I noticed they were already attached to the agenda, so thank you. And also thank you, Paul, for helping us with all of this, the procedures here. So Horizon will come and speak a little bit more about the hardship that they're experiencing with their current parking situation. I just, as the contractor, wanted to explain what we're proposing to do for their parking and how I think it will impact, or I suppose not so much impact, the businesses around it. The grassy area you see at the top of the current picture that's up there is a state-of-the-art doggy bathroom right now. And they'd like to turn that into a few more parking spaces for both their staff and their clients. So the setbacks, thank you, by the way, for explaining that, Patrick. I appreciate it better than I would have. But what we're proposing is, instead of following the traditional setbacks, we would be reducing the east side. So on the east side there's parking garages for those apartments right there. That would remain essentially zero, and the parking lot would go right up along that privacy fence. Our proposition for the north side, instead of being that, I think it was a 15 or 20 foot, would be 7 feet setback. Once again, that privacy fence would remain in place. And then on the west side, if you see that strip, kind of the little L part, hanging down part, we'd maintain that all the way up. So the dogs still have a state-of-the-art restroom there. And once again, that privacy fence and tree would stay as well. In Sioux Falls, I know a lot of the times the reasons for setbacks are important so that people living in those apartments and houses don't have car lights streaming into their windows at night. And Horizon can talk a little bit more about this, but their hours, I don't think that would be an issue. They close at 6:30. And like I said, the privacy fence and trees would stay. I think in the pictures and notes I showed, I think I answered everything well, but does anyone have questions about the proposed parking lot design?
Well, first, how tall is that privacy fence?
I believe it's 6 foot, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because their apartment, they're forced to put that fence up there and,
Whose property are the 3 fences on?
whose property the fences are. It's the apartments on the north and the east, and it's the homeowners, I believe, on the west. I'm not sure. The fence was there when I bought the property 12 years ago, 13 years ago.
So just to clarify, the fences that are being discussed do not belong to the applicant.
I don't believe so.
To that point, the 2 exceptions in the GB district, if you hit the exception by being next to a residential, a fence, wall, berm, or shrubbery 6 feet in height and of a character necessary for adequate screening of a GB property from an abutting or adjacent R1, R2, R3, or R4 property shall be provided. So that applies to both the expanded setback of the rear and the side.
If there aren't questions about the plan itself of what we would like to do, I would like Dick and Shally had just kind of wanted to explain the situation there and now, if that's okay.
I see a couple different pictures here.
Yeah.
Are those different options?
No, it's just all explaining the same, I guess the same plan we had all along from different viewpoints. So that lane would be maintained. That picture right there, that would just go straight down. And as you can kind of see with those parking garages, they aren't meeting the setback requirements either. I don't foresee the parking lot being on the side of the parking garages really affecting them. And the drainage would stay the same. We have a drain there in place, so everything could slope to that just fine. And yeah, then the other pictures are just kind of showing the different sides. So that's the duplexes right there. That parking would go up with about a 7-foot buffer on that back end, if possible. on that would be the north side. And then, yeah, that's just kind of another picture. Privacy fences, we have, I mean, they're not ours, we're not taking them down, the trees would stay. And then if you scroll down a little more, that would be maintained on that side. I think it's about 10 feet, or, that would be maintained, so the dogs still have a little dog run on that side there.
On pages 12 and 13 of our packet, I see one addition of 18 parking places there. And on the one on page 13, it shows 19 and a trash.
Yeah, we were
Which one
playing.
of those are you thinking about?
Dick, you were leaning towards.
Probably moving the dumpster area, because we're gonna gain spots by that.
So, can you pull up page 13 on our packet then? So that's page 13 in our packet, and that shows trash there with 19 additional spots. Well, I'm not sure how many additional spots. The numbering's kind of weird, but that one has more spots than the on page 12. But that one has an area for trash. Where's your trash going to be at?
If you scroll up to the page
On
above
page
there.
12?
So yes, now look at the bottom left, or the bottom right there. Yes, where the mouse currently is, that is where the dumpster is. We were able to gain spots by moving the dumpster from the outside of the property towards the center of the property, allowing us a larger lane, and then it would be easier for the trash to come in and out, as well as provide us with more spaces.
Can you get a car between that parking spot and the trash?
Yes, in that one we can, but we are gonna move it, so that way it will be easier to get a car past that space.
It made more sense to move it.
So, I'm just trying, is there, so you're looking at the one on page 12, is the one is that what we're talking about?
The one on page 13, if you look at the picture that's currently on the board, that red chain link area, that's where the dumpster is. And so by the option that has more spots, it will be moved towards
To where the pickup is.
where the pickup is, yeah.
If everyone speaking could use the microphone, that would be great for the recording.
Dick Rogan, I guess the renter of the property, but my family owns it. Biggest thing about it is, we've been very fortunate. We came to Brandon 14 years ago. I had to come in front of zoning and planning 14 years ago to even get into your city to work, and we were in a strip mall. And they were worried about us being good citizens. And we were good citizens. We grew so well that we needed a bigger building, and we were lucky enough that we were able to build the new building on 1100 East Holly. Biggest problem we have is we went from 1 doctor and 3 employees to right now we have 6 doctors and 20 employees.
Wow.
We have people come as far as the Canadian border, Fargo, North Dakota, Minneapolis. We get down to Omaha and we're into northwestern Iowa that come as our clients. A lot of them come and stay overnight. Over 60% of our business is not from Brandon. We're not a predominantly Brandon. 40% of the people are from Brandon, 60% are from outside the city limits. A lot of these people come, they stay in the hotels overnight, or they come and they have to spend a day here. So they do business here in town, they go to your restaurants, they go to your grocery store, they go to your hardware store, they gotta burn time. We've grown so much that what should have been, at the time was the largest mama clinic in South Dakota, we've grown so much we're splitting at the seams. And we bought this lot, and we were lucky that the lot was really big because it used to be a daycare there. And so all these fences were in place there. But it was with the good part of it was we'd have an ability to do some expansion at some point. So now we're to the point we have too many people. If you go on Yelp, we have negative reviews on Yelp about parking. Not about bad medicine, not about bad care, but parking. And you don't have a municipal parking lot in Brandon. So if we overflow, we're at the mercy of every other person in Brandon, the grocery store, the old post office next door, would allow some people to park there if needed, but it's owned by a private entity now, and they have the freedom. We've attempted to lease from them 2 different times, offering money to lease spots. They're not interested. That's okay, it's their property, I get that. So this gives us an opportunity to provide not only parking for our staff, but also for our people that come here to have their pets taken care of. So the biggest thing is that on the west side of our property, when they showed you that aisle that goes back and where our parking lot is right now, that abuts to the only 2 houses on the west side. So both houses that this would impact already are impacted by our parking lot. Our parking lot is partially on both of their backyards. Had no complaints, had no problems, they're great people. If the tree branch goes down, we go cut it down, we maintain our property. When we go to the north with the apartment building, we're fortunate enough today, Steve Morgan called today, and he owns that that apartment complex. And he wanted us to let you know that he gave us our blessing, that he has no problem with us making the new parking lot. So the owner of the apartment building says, go ahead and do it. To our other side, it basically impacts the apartment building and the 2 houses that are on the west side, and we're already impinging on their property like we always have. When you go back to the building next door just on the east, they don't even have a 4-foot setback. And if you go along where the back of the grocery store is, I don't know if that alleyway is theirs or not, but the sign says it's theirs. They have about a 3-foot variance with the apartment complex. We were out measuring it on Sunday. But anyway, got a big business, a fast-growing business. We've been the Business of the Year in Brandon by the Chamber of Commerce. We've been in the Business of the Year from the food pantry. We're a corporate sponsor of your marching band. We're a corporate sponsor of your athletics. We've got a problem. We want to stay in Brandon, but we've got a problem because without these extra spots, my staff has to walk a block or 2. We have to worry about them having problems. Our clients have to park somewhere. Our neighbors aren't very happy if somebody parks in their parking lot in front of their business. We have an option here. We're not impinging on anybody's rights, and I think that this is something that'll be very positive for us and allow us to keep growing, keep being part of the community, but we really need this parking lot. This is a big problem, and we're doing our best to be good citizens. And when we first built this building, we have our own storm drain. It's not the city of Brandon's. I paid $20,000 to have a storm drain put in so I wouldn't impinge on anybody else's property. Today, if we get into and add on to our parking lot, we have a big enough storm drain to be able to handle that. Where a lot of the properties in Brandon don't have their own private storm drain. We're trying to be a good citizen. Does that make sense? Any questions? Did I miss something?
You may have said this, but the question, I'm trying to remember the history of the building. Did you say that you built the building that's there now?
It was a daycare, and no one wanted it, and it was full of mold. So we excavated it and put on a 5,000 square foot building, basically. You know, everything is new.
Yep. But it's a different building that was there before, right?
Yes,
Yep,
yeah, it
yep.
used to be a daycare. It had water damage in the basement on that building. Anything else I can answer for you, or?
Have you considered parallel parking on the east side and one-directional traffic?
We already do that. It's full.
Okay. Well,
If you
what I'm
drive by
seeing-
my parking lot, there's literally 12 to 14 cars a day in the front of it.
So as I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the aerial photograph. It's page 11 in our packet. And keeping the existing parking width, it appears that across from the building, for the width of the building, there are 7 current parking stalls.
Correct.
In your proposed plan, in a wider layout, you have 6.
Yeah, we have against the building, where we're not against the building with what we have right now. We can't park against the building. There's not
I
adequate space.
understand that. So
saying is, in an east-west dimension, the width of your building, not facing your building, but across from the drive aisle from your building, you're currently accommodating 7 cars. 8 if you go all the way up to the dumpster, but 7 cars. So, in my mind, you could accommodate 7 cars facing the building in your new layout.
6.
7. You could accommodate 7. You have 7 in that current width right now. You've got
Yeah,
two.
but
You've got
one
two
would,
guys.
one would obstruct the back door, so if we had a fire, we can't have a car right there.
Well, you're doing it at the front door. So
Okay,
what
so,
you're doing at the front door,
yes,
you can do.
okay, I understand that.
That's employees back there only. So
Okay,
you could get 7 there. Across from that, where you're currently getting 8, you could get 8 again. That's 15 spots. To me,
in the
I'm
present
concerned
space, so,
about setting the precedence here for the rest of the city to impact 3 setbacks to gain 4 spots.
no.
Well, your
No,
plan
no,
would be-
that math isn't right, sir.
Well,
That math is not right.
which map are you referring?
Your math is not right. We cannot make, the cars cannot make a park, they cannot make the arc and park against the back of the building and park in the current spots that we have behind the building. You have to have, how many feet? It's 20 feet? To be able to back your car out, you have to have clearance. And you can't do that with what we have today. I'd be doing it if we could have that today.
But you're doing it now. That's what I'm saying, so.
No. I think you got a misconception.
All right, which one, okay. I'm a little frustrated because I reached back to the city 2 or 3 times to get a correct plan. We've got 3 options here, and what I'm hearing, none of those options match what you're asking for. So you gotta understand my frustration, please,
Can I speak, please?
okay?
Yeah.
So, none of the plans in here represent what you're even asking for.
I'd very like to clarify that for you. My name's Alex Rogan. I'm a veterinarian at the practice. Grew up here in Brandon. So right now on that page there, the current option that we have right now, current parking is the picture on the top. That is what we currently have. Okay? So where that mouse cursor is. So that is our current parking.
Right, I understand that.
So where do you see the spots going in?
What I'm saying, if you go to the aerial photo, please. The width of your building right here, you are accommodating 7 cars,
Yes.
okay? Go to the next page, please. In a wider width, encroaching beyond here, you're only getting 6. So you're taking up more space, and you're parking 1 less car.
That doesn't change their setback that we live
I'm just saying, I don't think you need to take all of this property to get 18 spots. You put
Nothing is
7
gonna
here,
change,
you
nothing
put
is gonna
8 here,
change towards that direction
That's 15
now.
right there.
But nothing is gonna change towards that direction of the property. Like the
What direction?
towards the west. That setback
I
isn't
understand
gonna
that, but
change.
you're currently accommodating 7 between here and here. If you go to the aerial photo, please,
So what's your point? Do you want to take less off the back?
right here, you got 7 cars here, you put them here, there's 7. You put 7 plus 1 across from that, that's 15. And you're only coming up to here.
Well, I think what he's saying though, Brian, is that the 7 that are parked back there right now do not leave enough room for anything to be parked up at the building. They have to shove it back.
I'm not disagreeing with that, guys. I'm saying you come
Yeah,
up here,
yeah, I see what, that's what I'm
here,
saying.
and you park here. And that's 15.
Paul, can I ask you, what is the difference between parking spaces as an engineer? Who's the engineer? You have to have like 20 feet between the end of one car and the beginning of the other car
Typically, it's a 20-foot stall, 25-foot drive out, 20-foot stall.
Yes, and by that time, we're almost, and at the cost of the project, it's expensive.
Yeah, you're 65 feet deep.
It's farther than that.
One-
If
one-
you went,
One
if you merely
double-
measured it
one
to,
double-loaded lane.
if you measured with a ruler, it's farther than where your finger's at. But I don't, I understand your point, but the people behind us gave us, they are okay with us doing this.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but once we say you can do it, everybody in town can do it.
Then are you gonna make my neighbors that have a 3-foot setback pull their parking spots out so that they're also in line with the laws of Brandon? Right there, the back of the old post office has 3-foot setback. Is that precedence?
I wasn't here when
Well, I
when they
understand,
built
but
that.
I'm
I
asking,
wasn't
you're
on
saying
this
about
board.
precedent, but is that precedent then?
The codes were probably different back then. The ordinances were probably different back then.
And the grocery store has 0.
They're not up against residential.
They're right, they share the same backyard with the same apartment complex.
Okay.
And it's all zoned residential completely behind them all the way to the next street.
I'm just saying we have to be consistent moving forward.
There's likely some differences now from when the building was first built, and we see this sometimes where there's, due to the passage of time, there's what now is a non-conforming use essentially with aspects of the way your lot is laid out, and
The hard
those
part is-
could
the hard part
exist,
is-
but when you go to make changes to that, it's hard to increase a non-conformance even further. That's a difficult part.
But if there's not resistance from my neighbors, I don't want to leave the city of Brandon, but I can't keep here if I don't get some parking.
I'm not against your business. I take my dogs to your business.
Yeah, I
okay? Sorry, my
understand
wife
that. I
does,
just,
so-
but I'm to the point where sometimes you grow to the point that it's uncomfortable. And we're there right now. And there's a danger to the public when they have to walk a block on the ice. You know?
I was gonna add something, if it's okay. It's Regan Duval from Jan's again. So I know I don't look like it, but I've been in construction about 12 years in Sioux Falls, and this is not an uncommon situation to run in really any of the areas we do work in, where you end up with an awkward chunk of land that's not really being used to its full potential because of ordinances and because of how things were done a long time ago before you guys worked here, you know. And typically, I hope that you guys can kind of think about it from, of course, you don't want to set a precedence that people have a parking lot in their backyard. I get that. I want one in my backyard. But it is important to look at it on a site-by-site basis and a lot-by-lot basis. Quite frequently, a lot of times in historic districts too, you end up with some great land that could be serving a purpose, and it's not. And it's kind of a lot of red tape to go around. So I agree with setting a precedence, and I understand, but I do think each set of land or each little lot and property is different. I'm sure you guys have seen some things over the time you've been here that everything's a little different, and sometimes you end up in situations like this. Just from a contractor standpoint, we did look at a variety of ways to get them some more spots, not necessarily as many as they want, but trying to squeeze in a few more where we can. This was the best option we came up with, and if anybody here would like more information, I know the architect involved with designing this and doing the calculations would be more than happy to answer questions. I don't know if this can span out longer than today, like if you guys have questions, but they did a lot of work for us trying to make this work, trying to get people set in there. So if there's questions anyone has, you guys can just Google Jan's Corporation, find my name, and I can get you in touch with the architect that designed it and go through. We went through a lot, and Horizon went through a lot. They tried to lease from several places. We've been looking at every avenue we can. So that's why I was just going to say, if anyone needs more information, grab me after this or Google Jan's Corporation and my name and give me a call. I can definitely provide you our other kind of options we went through. Thank you.
Would it be possible, Can we have the page 13 or 12 again? Either one. To redraw it so that you've got the spaces up next to the building, but turn those other ones, you might have to lose a couple, but turn them the other way so that the back of it will be open?
Like, are you saying like an L-shaped?
No.
No, okay, sorry.
If you move these like this and didn't have ones in the back here that would affect the setback, and you stayed away from this edge here to affect that setback, you could still get 12 extra spaces.
What, can you use your finger to like show me what you think the drive lane would be?
Well, if you moved it like this.
Turn it, okay.
They could go through here and park on this side or on this side.
But it'd just be one
It'd be
strip.
Double parking
Turn the other way.
facing this way and this way
In the center.
in the center.
And not the ones alongside the building.
You can keep them, but you just move it so that this parking would end up right about here and maybe back here. And this side would be open for the garbage, and you'd have space over here.
Oh, on the dog run side.
Right.
Right. Okay. I don't know. Do you guys remember? Did we try that one? I feel like there wasn't enough room for it because we tried quite a few parking scenarios here. I think I understand what you're saying, and I
Try to go
apologize if
from
I
8 to
don't.
12 to try and give you as much as you can.
Yeah. I appreciate it. We kind of been scratching our heads on this one a lot, trying to squeak in.
I have a question for staff, and this, I'm guessing people might watch our meeting online, and just to make clear what we're talking about for them and me.
Yep.
Okay, so these pictures, in these pictures, north is off to the right, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
There's an
And,
apartment complex to the north.
yeah, all right, so on this top picture here, there's a lot of green area.
Correct.
Okay. And then on on this lower picture, they want to put that. And it looks like there's still a lot of green area to the right there, to the north.
No, it's, That's
So the
paved.
green area would be, the property line is kind of the hashed area, so it would be between the hashed area and the pavement, and that is
Say-
a little hard to see on.
Say
this.
what now?
So, on the bottom drawing,
Yes.
this is all paved. This would be your grass area, between the hashed and the solid line.
Would be all paved.
Correct, if
Is
this
that what
plan
you're
were to
saying?
be
Yeah,
built, that's what it would be.
So the cars can go in there. Yeah, I see what you're saying. All right, so when we're talking about setbacks, I know when, at the first, it was in a sentence, but it went kind of fast by, and I want you guys to say it again. The setbacks are supposed to be what?
So, on a normal, on a general business lot, not abutting a residential lot, the side yard setback is 7, the rear yard is 5.
The
But
rear
since-
yard is 5, okay.
But since it abuts a residential
Yep.
lot, the side becomes 15 and the rear becomes 20.
Okay, and are we talking about the side, which is this part that's on the bottom of the picture?
The north and the south
We're talking
lot
about the
lines
north
on this picture would be
part.
side yards.
Yeah, but would that be affected in this project, the side yard?
Every yard except the front yard is impacted. So
Is
if you
what?
want to look at it as 3 variances.
Yeah.
One for on this would be the top, the right side, and the lower side. So,
Well, just to clarify, here again, this is not, we don't have any accurate drawings of what they're asking for. But the commentary and the pictures indicate they're not looking for a variance on the west side. So we're only talking the north and the east.
And the west side is on the top on these pictures. I
Correct.
gotta keep saying this
But
to
none of the,
myself,
none of the
'cause I always
drawings
think
in the
north is up.
application reflect the commentary and the notes on the picture. That's, here again, that's my frustration, that the information you guys are sending is not what you're asking for.
I
You
do,
said you were gonna keep the area on the west 15 feet to match what you currently have for a dog, a pet
sure,
area.
I get what you're saying.
What you're showing is 7 feet.
Yeah, can you scroll,
So-
I think I understand what you're saying. Can you scroll down to that aerial shot that has like the grass in it, like the Google image one or whatever that?
Yeah,
That one.
Right there.
Yeah,
The
so
current
I-
lot is about 15 feet if you
Yes.
scale off of Google Earth.
Yes, I
And
see,
that's
I see what you're
In
saying.
the picture with the commentary on it, is you're gonna keep that.
Yes, we,
Talking about right here, huh?
yes,
Yes.
that strip could stay. That's correct. That strip could stay.
It stays the same width all the way back to the back.
I'm just saying, to clarify, you're not asking for a variance on the west property. Yes or no?
Patrick, is the west side supposed to be 20 feet though?
It would be 15. Currently on the drawing on page 15, if we go off the hash line measurement, there is 7 feet between the parking lot line and that side. And the ordinance would require 15.
15.
But
Where-
So, just,
go
sorry,
ahead.
one quick verification. So I was thinking the north would be the rear, but
Correct.
you're looking at the north as the side.
the
And-
north is the rear. It's the opposite of the front on the street, so it's the rear.
Okay.
The
So-
left and the right on this are
So,
the side.
yeah, what
Okay,
Brian's
so
saying
then-
is
then
correct.
So then the side is the 15-foot, okay. I was,
Correct. The side
Yep.
is 15, the rear is 20.
okay, I thought you, that's what, I was looking at it, but then I thought you said something about, okay,
Yeah.
just want to clarify.
No,
Thank you.
I'm tracking now, and what Brian's saying is making sense. So on that picture right there, the top of the picture, that side would be impacted, and then the right-hand side of the picture would be impacted, but not the left-hand side, like you're saying. Yes. I understand now. I was not clicking, and now I am.
So the,
Just wanted to clarify.
yeah.
Yes, I
me-
appreciate that. Thank you.
And let me make sure I understand, please. Okay, so the left-hand side, which is the west side,
Yep,
if you put an addition onto the parking lot, it would still be the same distance from the lot line or from the fence as it is now?
Yes, ma'am.
Even farther back?
yes, ma'am, yep.
Okay, how about on the east side? where
That would
this-
run straight back.
It would run straight back, and it would be the same distance from the
Yeah.
lot line as it is now?
Yeah, like right up against the
And does
fence.
it comply right now?
It would be non-conforming.
Okay,
Correct. They're, based on what's next to it and the layout of the lot, if you were to extend the access aisle back, the access aisle cannot be in the setback. The
so
setback
that
would be 15
like
feet.
going up there.
Yep,
Correct. That would be, the drive is currently in nonconformity, so you would be extending a nonconformity.
Okay.
Yep.
So the variance would have to,
It would apply to that
it would
side as
apply
well.
to
Yep.
the east side, but
Yes.
west side, so, okay.
The west side would need a variance as well because it is 15 feet. It meets the 7 if it didn't have the extra required because of residential, but it is 15.
So the,
And right now it is 7 away on the drawing.
so it's non-conforming right now.
Well, and that's where I think Brian was looking for some clarification, because there's,
What's
they're
existing is
saying-
non-conforming. If you added to
Yeah.
it, that would be new.
right, they're saying that they're not going to extend the parking lot west of the building line, which is what they're showing in the pictures with the green space that's currently there. They're gonna run that parallel further north, so they're not actually going to be getting into the setbacks on the west side.
They will be.
Well,
is it currently?
that's where the.
It is
there's a-
15 feet. Just the building itself is non-conforming, so that line is non-conforming.
Yeah.
If it were to go away and be built today, 15 feet would be required.
Do you know what the building's at?
Yes.
What,
According to this, it is 7 feet on page 13.
Okay.
Yeah, I like how, I think that how you phrase that helped. It is
So this
continuing a
line right now
nonconformance.
Doesn't conform. Between here and here, it's not 15 feet, that's what you're saying?
So that, yes,
It
but
is
if they
15 feet.
extend it as shown on the drawing on page
your drawing,
13.
you're showing 7,
Right, right.
so that's what we're asking.
And that's what
Are
I
you gonna move it to 7?
That's what I started clicking for Brian. No, Brian brought up a good point. That strip, the conversation we had,
I see what
and
you're
Dr.
saying
Rogan, you
here
guys can
because
correct
of
me if I'm
this.
wrong, that would stay the exact same strip so the dogs still have a dog run. So I believe what Brian's point's correct. Really, that west side, we shouldn't be asking for a variance on that if I'm understanding properly. And I apologize because I probably filled out that paperwork thinking we needed it on all of the sides. So,
If the west side stays 15 feet
Yeah.
away in the parking lot.
Yeah.
But if it is constructed as it's shown on page 13, it would need.
Can you
Variance.
put it back to page 12? Okay, because right now, this lines up, but in this drawing, it
yes,
doesn't.
I
It
see.
picks up.
What, can you go to page 13 once? Oh, of course, that doesn't show it much better either,
This
but
shows
yes,
7 from the property line to the
I
parking
understand,
lot.
I understand what you're
Is that
saying
the
now.
building there? Yeah,
Yep, I
it's-
understand what you're saying now. And what Brian's point was, I was trying so hard to wrap my head around it earlier, and now it's finally clicking.
Conceptually, if this were 15, then it could be built
Yes.
in line with the building.
And, yeah, it will maintain that 15 then. That is correct, and I'd be more than happy to get them to make that change on the plans and send them out again. So it'd be 15 on that west side, so I suppose there's no variance on that west side. And then it'd be continuing the nonconformity on the east side, and then we'd be going within, I believe it's 5 or 7 feet on that back side. So in my opinion, it's really that back side that would be experiencing or noticing any sort of change. And like Dr. Rogan discussed, it's, that, you know, they gave their blessing. They said, yeah, that makes sense. And their hours aren't such that I believe they'd cause any sort of disruptance to folks trying to enjoy dinner, get to bed, or anything like that.
Just for P and Z's clarification, if you were, so as it sits, it is not conforming, but if you were to extend it, that's what requires the variance, because it is new, it is not
Yep.
the non-conforming, it is a new thing.
Yep, just like you said, the codes were different when it was built, and you guys maybe didn't work here, but yeah, that is the better way to explain it. Thank you for saying that.
So just so everyone on YouTube and in the audience understand, their standard for a variance is purposely, they have a high bar to clear. The standard is there needs to be something exceptionally irregular, narrow, shallow, or steep about the lot, or some other exceptional physical characteristic about the lot where you strictly applying the language in this book results in something, an unreasonable hardship. So it's, those things tend to not be financial or otherwise, it's something physically about the property that requires them to go outside of the code.
Yes, about the land itself, not about because I mean, your business could grow so big that you'd have to move even after this. Or,
We want to stay in Brandon, this is home.
well, yeah,
If we have to move, we can't stay in Brandon, you have no property.
exactly. But who knows how many years down the road, you know? And other people might live in the apartment building that live there now, or in those houses that live there now, who might have different opinions of what is next to them. So that's why we have laws, I guess. And that's why we have to consider the land and not what's in the building. If I said that, so it's understandable. Any other discussion?
I come across a little harsh once in a while. I'm a,
Don't
but
we all?
I'm a by the book kind of guy, but some suggestions to the applicant that would make my life a little bit easier. Obviously, we've addressed the west side. No variance required there. The east side, you're asking for something that we don't even allow in residential, okay? And it abuts residential. So if this was, even if this was high-density residential, we would not allow a parking lot that close to the property line. And so we're putting something in. Yes, it's, I don't know, is it R2, R3? I don't know.
R3 behind it.
Okay, it's R3, we're putting in something worse than an R3, next to an R3, see what I'm saying? So, we should be at 15 because it's against residential. If you were R3, putting it right next to another R3, you would still have to have a setback there. You're basically asking for a zero setback allowance here. That's really hard for me to put my arms around and say, yeah. So, what I'm suggesting here would be to give us some leniency on that east side as well, and not a zero setback. So, I mean, that would make my life a little bit easier to maybe say yes. I can't say yet yes or no, but to go with a zero setback, that's a pretty drastic variance request in my mind. So, and I think, you know, yeah, they're not going to be the most spacious parking spots, but you got to remember, this isn't like going to Walmart where you're in and out every hour. Those are typically a 9-foot stall because people are going in and out. Typically, parking lots where you're in and you're in all day, you typically go narrower, okay? Especially in I'm assuming this is just for staff, it's not for public. The public would obviously be at the front door. So, yeah, you can maybe go to an 8.5-foot stall, and you could probably pick up an extra stall or two. So, just some comments, okay?
I have another question for staff. Sometimes when we have questions like this, we look at our ordinances again to see if there are other places in town that might in the future have similar requests. Is this one of those cases?
Well, I sent this to Patrick and Paul. What if we had mutual access between the two properties? For example, between Alliance and the post office.
Yeah,
That goes right down the property line. So I'm okay with it between a general business and a general business because, yeah, mutual access
I thought about that too.
would have parking right over the property, or, you know, a driveway right over the property line. So I don't have an issue where it's abutting the general business, but it's just, I get a little bit nervous
On the sides
when we're up
and,
against, even though it's R2 or R3,
Mhm.
I don't think we should go worse than that adjacent property, but we should
Uh-huh.
at least match it in my mind.
and they're looking up something. I have another question for them too. Yeah, I'm gonna give them a minute to discuss. Okay, I have another question.
Yep.
For you. Since we have a drawing on page 12 and a different drawing on page 13, two options, as it were, and then we talked about the west side and whether your concept would line up with the edge of the building or go out and stuff. Would it be a good idea maybe to continue this to a later meeting and maybe have some new drawings that are more clear and more precise?
If I'm understanding correctly, one of the things Brian was asking to see is if we didn't have to go right up to the edge of the property line. It was one of the plans we discussed with Horizon, and that would be up to them to decide, is it worth bringing in all the, heavy equipment and putting in a parking lot to only get a few more spots or not?
Yeah.
So I suppose that's maybe a conversation we need to have at a later time. I don't know if that, that was kind of, our original conversation was, it's not worth all this work to just get 2 or 3 more spots.
Can I throw one quick thought up here?
Yes, please.
So, if we don't extend that non-conformance up here, you came in here and drove in here, and you had parking stalls here, and you used this as the turn space, and then had your 15 feet off and had parking spots here, you could leave your 20 feet back here, leave your 15 feet there. You don't extend your non-conformance. You have, I don't know how many spots you can have, but if you can have 5 on each side, you gain 10. You'd have your 6 over here. Could something like that work?
That's what Tom was.
I
Well, no, he was saying,
don't,
he was saying turn this, and then you have to have a turn spot here and a
Okay.
turn spot here.
Yeah.
I'm saying do that, but
Yeah,
split it and have
shorter.
a turn
Yeah.
spot in the middle,
Mhm.
because then you don't need 2 turn spots. You have 1 turn spot,
Yeah.
parking here and parking here,
Yeah.
1 turn spot, so it's 25 foot less to work with.
Yeah.
You
It-
can
Tom
get
was
spots.
talking
If
on
I'm
stage
under-
about what you said.
if I'm understanding correctly, I think we did play around with your design, and I believe it only added a couple spots, maybe like 3 or 4, once we laid it all out. So what Horizon has to decide, and I think maybe they already have, I don't want to speak for them, is, okay, it costs a lot to mobilize heavy equipment and bring in dirt work, so you get more bang for your buck, economy of scale, essentially, to get as many spots as possible. I obviously don't work at the pet clinic. I'm a contractor, so of course I'd be happy to build them a new building, but I know they don't want that. I know they'd like to stay and make it work. And like I said earlier, I would be more than happy to kind of show you the different, if I can get in on another meeting or meet. I don't know how this works, if I can email you guys separately, but show you what we worked through, show you all the drafts and all the things we tried before this. That might be helpful in answering the questions. Additionally, if it's okay if I contact you outside of this, I could send that adjusted west side to just make it a little clearer. But like I said, I'm not sure if that's kind of unusual or if that's okay.
If you send it to Paul or I, and we can send it to them if they want to see it, or, so
Yeah,
it's kind of up to them whether they, if you want to postpone a decision to the next meeting pending more information, or if you were to grant a variance, you can issue conditions, so you can, if you were to grant one, you could limit the variance. You could tell them what it is and have them work around it. You could deny it outright. You have some options.
Hi, Alex Rogan again. I'm veterinarian at Horizon Pet Care. The challenge that we have here is on any given day, we employ 22 people at this clinic. We have 22 people on staff a day. And so for us to be able to have parking for our people that are coming here to do business, we need to have these spots. We've tried to get around it for a long time. This last winter was indeed a hardship with how long the winter was. We had numerous clients and staff members parking over at the Sunshine parking lot and walking the 2 blocks to block and a half on the pavement. During the ice storms, we had to worry about people falling, and that's both our staff members and our clients. With winter approaching, the reason why that we wanted to step in and get this project done is because we want that done before winter. I just don't want to risk our staff getting and slipping. I know I fell last winter. It wasn't, I'm young and rubbery, so I didn't have any problems, but I do worry about an older person having to fall on the ice. So with that, the big thing that I want you guys to think about, when you look at the west end of this parking lot, we're just going to extend the current lot. That's all that it is. On the west side, we're going to extend it. That's the border of the west side. The idea, when you look at the precedence that's current, there is no setback currently between Sunshine Grocery Store and that apartment. So there is precedence that that's okay. Also, the property owner of that apartment is okay with us doing this. So with us not changing the current curb set to the west and the precedence of no setback on the other side of that apartment building, that's why we didn't see that it would be a major issue for us to go forward with plans like this to enlarge the parking lot. I hope that is concise for you. Thanks.
From a planning and zoning standpoint, just because something exists, a nonconformity does not mean there's no setback. A separation distance, it's a nonconform, it still exists. If Sunshine came in and Duratio came and knocked the whole thing over, they would have to build with the modern setbacks. One of the Board of Adjustment standards on page 128 F5 is no nonconforming use or structure in the same district, and no permitted or non-conditional use or structure in other districts shall be considered the sole grounds for the issuance of a variance. So they are working with a very confined set of rules. What people often think of as terms are very, zoning has some individualized terms that applies just kind of, definitions are, there's a common definition, there's the zoning definition, what one thing might not be. Just because there's no separation distance currently between something does not mean that a setback does not exist, it's just non-conforming, so it's not applied.
What's the setback behind Arby's and the Gruff? Because when you drive back there through their drive up, there's not much grass there. And that's a new building, correct?
You're talking about general business to general business, though?
It's an apartment behind them.
Okay, you're saying Arby's to the Gruff. You're talking about
Yeah.
to the apartment?
Apartments.
If it is general business and it is abutting on the R3, it would be the same currently under the zoning code. Whether it was that when it was built, I don't know, but if it were to be built today, it would be the same standard.
Yeah, just looking at the county GIS, it looks like it's 15, 20 feet.
I want to get home to my dog, so I promise I don't want to keep you guys here all night. But I did just think of something. So my career in construction for most of it has actually been safety compliance. So I'm a big rules person too. I like rules. I like them followed because they exist for a good reason, as do all of your codes exist for a good reason. Every safety regulation, every code was written for a reason. But one thing that I've learned when I first came in, I had my book and I wanted to look at the rules and follow the rules no matter what. And I learned really quickly that sometimes there's rules, especially in the safety world, but just bureaucracy that doesn't quite make sense for each situation. And so I know, and as someone who still likes rules and likes to follow them, I do always look at each situation and each case and each individual person, each construction site, each hazard, and what exactly is going to make logical sense. I hope you guys can do the same with this. Looking at that aerial picture, to me, I guess when it first came across our plate, I was like, oh, of course that'd be doable, just based on logic of what's around it. But I do just want to say we appreciate the rules and standards. I do especially, just because my background in safety, but I do hope you're also able to kind of look at the individual nature of this project and the other hazards that the current parking setup is creating for the folks that go to this building right now. Thank you.
So Alyssa mentioned earlier that, is there many examples of this around town? And that's something we'd have to look into. If there are, sometimes a variance is a very high standard to grant. So in some situations, this board is obligated by the language in front of them that they have to apply to hold to those standards. But there's also, they also do, this is the Board of Adjustment, but it's also the Planning Commission when they switch their hat. So at the Planning Commission level, they look at the codes in town constantly. That's the next couple discussion items on the agenda. Does it make sense? So if this is an area subject to where you would want to amend the code, we can certainly talk about that as well. So there are a lot of ways to go about it. The variance by far is the most strict, but if item is worth reconsidering as the text of the code, we certainly can.
And I mainly asked about that because of the north side, where if there were not residential on the north side, the setback would be 7 feet, which is what most commercial buildings would have.
So, as just a point of reference, if you all have your nice long code books out, if you look at the neighborhood business district, starting on page 38, you have your setbacks on page 41 through 42. The general setback for most things is 25 front, 7 side, rear 10. If you look at exceptions for the rear, number 3 and 5, 3 is a yard of 20 feet shall be required if it abuts an R1 or R2. It does not speak to R3, and that's the neighborhood business. So is that something potentially to mirror? That would be up to you in the code.
So it doesn't even.
Neighborhood business would not have that increased setback next to an R3. It just specifies R1 and R2.
And that would be, what, going up to R3, 10 foot?
It would be 10 feet.
Yeah.
So we're still out of compliance.
They would still need to provide some screening, and that's number 5, but the setback would not increase next to an R3 in an NB lot.
My comment, I'm going to repeat it again. None of our districts allow a 0 setback.
My personal feeling is that I would like more time to look at the ordinance as far as the north side and the setbacks. Also, there seems to be, in the drawings that were provided to us, 2 options. And also during our discussion, we discussed maybe some changes on the west side, possibly the east side. If we approved this, drawings would need to be submitted to the city, correct?
Correct. We'd still need to see a site plan to confirm what they're going to build
And,
meets the requirements, they can get a building permit.
and I don't feel like we have an accurate site plan yet. Unfortunately, our second meeting of September is been canceled already, and we won't meet again until the first Thursday in October. So that would be the soonest we would be able to talk about this or see any revised drawings. But my personal feeling is that's what I would like to see happen. I know it's a whole nother month. I know that. And what say you guys?
According, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I just did some quick calcs based on the dimensions that are provided. With 15 feet on the west and a setback on the east, you should be able to easily get 19 spots. And trash.
on the north.
Doing it this way?
No, in the layout that they got.
Oh, okay.
No, that's still gonna require a variance, but that gives us at least some setback on the east side to make it a little bit easier to swallow.
Do you want to,
But I'm not hearing from the applicants that that's something that they wanna consider.
would you make a proposal to accept it
I
with our
can't-
condition?
I can't change their plan. They have to say, they have to modify what they're asking for.
So as it stands right now,
We either say yes or no.
so
On a variance, this isn't a conditional use, this is a variance.
but if we say, if we bypass it till the next meeting, and they come up with a plan that doesn't provide that zero lot line you're talking about, would that be?
And another question for staff. If we say no today, they have to wait how long before they can ask again?
6 months.
6 months. But if we,
Yes, you would have should they deny it, you would have an option to appeal to the city council, and we would need some kind of written statement of that within 5 working days of today's decision.
and then that would, and if the request came right away, how soon would the city council see it?
City council, I mean, we'd, probably not the next one, it would probably be October as well. That's a quick turnaround. I imagine if you're appealing a Board of Adjustment decision, you would have to do the same notice as you would for the hearing.
Yeah.
Are they able to amend their application if we postpone it to October?
I would like to ask the owner, if we postpone it to give you a chance and your builder a chance to come up with some different options, would that be, we don't want to say no, but we,
I'm sorry that I act frustrated, but we live in South Dakota. When does winter start? When does winter start? Could be, so if we can't be good citizens today, the earliest anything's gonna happen will be April or May next year. Because it's construction season. That's why we drive on one side of the highway all summer long, because it's South Dakota. We only get to build for about 6 months here. Can't lay asphalt after it freezes.
Typically, so it all depends on the soils conditions, how long something like this would take, but he is right. Asphalt plants sometimes are open until like 1st of November, but if you have to do a lot of prep work and a lot of
Yeah,
demo,
it could
sometimes
push the project into next spring, I understand. And I can sympathize with your employees who have to walk over Cross Highway. I worked at the Argus Leader for 12 years and had to cross the intersection of 10th and Minnesota all times during the year from either they have 2 parking lots, and if I was not lucky enough to get a parking place in the closer one, I had to park on Spring Avenue and had to walk about 2 blocks to get into the building. And conditions did not change when one of our employees was hit and killed at the intersection.
And that's
So
bad.
we weren't happy about it at all. So I can sympathize with your employees. And it's nice that the grocery store allows you to park there. Yeah. Do we have a motion?
So just for record-keeping standpoint, to approve a variance, you would need a concurring vote of 2/3 of the members of the Board of Adjustment. So
At
that would
least
be
4 of
4 out
us,
of 6.
yeah.
And the 6 number counts, so if there were only 4 of you here, you would still need all 4. It's the total board, not necessarily the board present.
And we were also discussing as staff when the first appeal could be to a city council meeting, so there may not be a delay. The next city council meeting is on the 18th of September.
18th of September, if, and that would be if we say no and they appeal to city council, the city council would hear it.
We would need to confirm that there is no similar public notice requirement. Since the variance hearing requires public notice by state law, would the appeal of the same thing require that same notice?
Now,
We would have to confirm.
yeah, and you don't know, there'd be no, you wouldn't know ahead of time what the city council would say. There's no way you could know ahead of time what the city council's gonna say.
But there can be no new information. Brian.
Correct.
There can be no new
yep.
information.
Could be no new information.
You're restating it to a different board, the city council.
But it probably wouldn't look good by being turned down by this committee.
The city council has reversed Board of Adjustment variances before, so I
But-
wouldn't say, I mean, they have reversed what this board has done before.
Barb Fish, 1401 South Parkview Place. Can they pull the request for the variance so that we don't have the 6-month time frame and bring further information to P and Z?
Or I think if they want to bring more information in October, I think we'd
If-
probably be okay with
Yeah,
with tabling it or however we want to word
Can you
that.
can you table it?
I think we can.
Okay.
I think that
Yeah.
was,
as far as I know, yes, we can table it and they can bring new information at the next meeting. If we table it until the next meeting, and then they can bring new information if they want, yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm picking up on the vibe, I guess. The information that you'd like to see would be less of or more, I guess, of a setback on that backside. And am my understanding kind of correct, like that maybe it'd be more palatable that way? The
think-
reason I ask is because I trust the architects that drew this and calculated it. I don't know that it could actually practically work. So I don't know if it's worth tabling it and their time. I just want to make sure the owners can make an informed decision if that's something they even want to do. But is my understanding correct that that's what you guys think could make it more palatable if that backside wasn't all the way up to the edge?
My first thought was that I'd like to confirm that the 15 feet would exist on the west side, because these don't show that. And I know you've stated that that's the way it would be, but I would like to see the drawings confirm that, the plan. And it is still a difficulty for me it's more the backyard than the side, even though I know both are an issue, because I recognize that the east side exists and it would extend a little further. I know that's just my opinion, and I'm not comfortable with it, but of the things that would remain, the rear would be more of a concern to me personally, but my opinion.
So I just punched out some numbers here. I'm assuming it's 100-foot width. You don't have a overall dimension, but
this one does say 100 foot there. Let me zoom in.
oh, if you zoom in.
It is 100 foot.
All right, my eyes are, thank you. So 15 foot on the west side, 51 feet is 6 parking stalls, 8.5 foot wide. 7 foot for a trash dumpster at the end of that back pair of aisles. 20-foot drive aisle, 7 foot setback is 100 feet. That will get you 19 parking spots in the back. Still gives us a setback on the east side, gives us the required setback on the west side. And when you, on that back parking stall, you currently have 19-foot stalls with 25 foot to the curb. You don't need that much if you're not backing up against cars on the other side. Because when you back out, your bumper goes over the top of the curb. So you can typically reduce that 65, which is typical in a double-loaded parking aisle. When it's single-loaded, you can typically get by with, 25 you can typically reduce that to 20. So that's going to give you another additional 5 feet on the back side. So that's just punching some quick numbers. I'd encourage you to take a look at that.
So if, let's say that that does lay out okay, and we'd still be requesting a variance on the two sides, but it would be less close to the edge of the property line on the north or the back. Is that something that you guys would foresee allowing?
I'll tell you right now, I'm going to say no on a 0 setback, which you've got on the east side.
But if we, like you discussed, if we redrew it,
To me, that's a little bit easier to swallow.
I would agree with Brian, because then you're minimizing it as much as possible, but still getting the same spots.
And if under our, we have a new neighborhood business district, and under that, we didn't, sounds like we didn't put that extra setback up against R3 like we do on R1 and R2. And so that might be a conversation that we can have going forward with a business district, because a neighborhood business district is usually meant to be easier in a residential area. So if we didn't put that under the neighborhood business district, that might be something that we can have with conversation if we're saying, you know, so it's easier to swallow, is what I'm saying. So if that's, if you move that back 26 foot to 20, and that gives us your 10 feet in the back, that'd be a lot easier to swallow. And we could have discussions with our current general business. That's, you know, but we can't have a conversation with general business going down to 5 foot or 0 foot or something like that. So for variance to say that we can't have that conversation going forward, that's really hard to swallow.
right?
So if we can say, yeah, we can have that conversation going forward, maybe it only works in this space, but if we can't even have the conversation going forward, it's really hard to say it would work in this space. So if we go, like Brian's saying, going on the east side to a 0 setback, we can't have that conversation going forward. We can't have 0 setbacks as the norm. So it's really hard to say yes to that. So,
Are you referring to that east side when you talk about,
well, the
or-
east side, we can't, I don't think we're gonna get to 0. I don't think that's, so we need to bring that back. But then on the back side, on the north side, if you, Brian was saying, you don't need as big of a space backing up because you can back up over the, you know, get your back over the curb, and you're not backing into cars either, so you don't need as much clearance.
yeah, yeah.
So instead of 26 foot, if you bring it down to 20, that brings your back setback from 5 to 10, actually 5 to 11.
Yeah, and
but-
I'm,
And that's something that we can have that conversation in this area, but it's hard, we can't say the new norm is 5.
right.
That's hard to swallow, but you don't need to. You can do this.
So if, I guess here's another question, and once again, I apologize that I'm kind of naive about these sort of proceedings. Are you able to approve is maybe not the right word, but approve a variance request with asterisks saying approved under certain red line conditions, such as what Brian just explained, and you as well? Is that a thing that happens? I know when we do like plan review, I'm familiar with that process because that's pretty straightforward. You'll get drawings, they'll say approved as long as you make these changes, so that you can at least, you know, they could at least keep going ahead this year.
So G on page 128 says, to preserve the intent of these zoning regulations and to protect the public interest, the Board of Adjustment may attach conditions to a variance.
And just to be clear, this board does not approve the site plan.
Right.
So they
yes.
don't need the site plan to be updated for them to make a decision.
Essentially, it would be the verbal, and then whatever ends up in the meeting minutes. Am I understanding that? Like if you said we would approve it if,
Right.
and that's, what did you phrase that as, Patrick? They're able to make,
They may attach conditions to a
Conditions,
variance.
okay.
Staff would approve ultimately the site plan before issuing a building
so is
permit.
that an option then, or am I not understanding properly?
So Patrick, just to clarify from a legal standpoint,
Yep.
we can basically write the variance with a motion?
I believe so. You can tell them what you will allow, and it would be their job to meet those or not do the project.
One question for the applicant. Are you rebuilding the curb and gutter on the current east side of the clinic?
I might need you to replacing it or continuing it? Oh, because of that jog over?
So, are you replacing anything that's currently in place right here?
No, I intend to tie into the existing unless,
That's actually the other property owner's curb.
yeah.
When it was the,
Can you go to that?
There's a little bit of a jog if I recall correctly.
I'm gonna try to help you guys through this
I
whole thing.
understand.
There's a curb up here.
Yes,
There's a curb up here. So if we go to the photographs and take a look down that drive aisle, please. Right here. Are you replacing that curb?
that's not my property. That goes with the other property. Ours jogs over, when you go by where the
just a
trash bin
slight-
is.
It's like the,
There's
Where
a
you go
curb
by-
over here and there's
Yes,
a curb here.
that's not my property.
Both of those curbs are outside your property line?
Yes, because I tried to get them to remove the curb so we could share our parking lot back when it was the post office and again with the new owners, and they said no, because we could have done an angled 45-degree park alongside the building if we would have had it. Yeah, but when you go back to my property,
Okay.
where the trash is, we have a 6-foot gutter that goes back there.
There.
That's our.
Perfect.
That's ours.
So,
Yes.
you're saying the property line is here?
Yes,
Here?
it's right there on.
yeah, so,
Right where the bigger, where it jogs, that's my property line.
so yes, we'd continue that curb and gutter. It is awkward, but yeah, we'd continue that curb and gutter.
Mr. Clark, if they're not doing anything there, it's a continuing, out of compliance situation.
Right.
As long as we're not rebuilding it.
Right, if they have not destroyed it or, yeah.
Okay. So, if we have the latitude to write a variance, I'm gonna suggest that we offset here to some sort of a setback. Keep 15 feet on the west, 10 feet on the rear. Yeah, from wherever, I don't know how far back that goes, but to not continue a zero setback, but to come in with an offset there and then, provide, like, say, a 7-foot setback, which is what would be required if it was, another R2.
So,
Be a lot easier to draw it out, but,
Yeah.
I don't know, any other comment from the applicant before we?
I guess I just wanted, and this is more for them than you. I don't even know who to face when I'm talking.
I'm just curious, so we can do you want to extend that curb, but come out a little bit on the
Yeah,
east
let's
side?
Go back to the
Yeah.
site plan. Back to the drawing one, please. And let's go to the existing.
Yeah, the existing one, yep,
Yeah.
right there on the top. Mhm.
So, from here, I'm gonna suggest we have a 7-foot setback along here,
Mhm.
a 15 along here, and a 10 in the back.
So to essentially extend that west one to the north?
Well, that's,
Yeah,
that's what we talked
maintain that
about
one,
earlier.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then how much off of the north side would there be?
10
10
foot
foot there?
on the rear.
With it being in,
And 7 out to your existing condition,
cool,
as long as you don't tear it out.
yeah. With it being an R3 property rather than an R1 or an R2 where you don't have like an outstating rule already, would it be okay to keep it at 7 feet rather than 10? To just keep it uniform with the rest of the property? Or did I misunderstand that right, where it was just for R1 and R2 properties, not an R3?
That's another zoning district. It's
Okay.
the neighborhood business, this is general business.
Gotcha, gotcha. Thank you for that clarification.
Because that's still giving you an exception, because an R3 rear setback, let me get to that here, is 25 feet. So if you guys are R3, backing up to another R3, you'd be still at 25 feet. Okay, that makes sense? Yeah. So we're giving you a pretty good variance here.
So just to make sure I'm,
Typically, a business is,
That'd be fair. Thank you so much for explaining that and laying that out and helping us out.
but here again, my calculations, east to west, is a 15-foot west setback, 51 feet of parking. So a 15-foot setback, 51 feet of parking here is 6 stalls at 8.5 foot wide. 7 feet for a dumpster on the end of this, a 20-foot drive aisle, and a 7-foot setback. I came up with 100 feet.
so just to make sure I'm clear, if what we're all just discussing works with the proposed asterisks, I'll call them, you're writing the variance essentially for us. If you guys do that, we go ahead, we redraw it, and we decide that, oh wait, it's not actually gonna work, we don't need to move forward with building it, just so you guys are clear. So I see, if I'm understanding correct, there's no harm in us asking your permission to write the variance with what you just described, correct? There's no harm in that?
How long do they
Request?
have, if we approve the variance, before they have to complete the job before the variance goes away?
Good question, thank you.
But if approved, you would plan on starting right away, is what,
Yeah, we'd get the plans redrawn with
Yeah.
the asterisks included and
Yeah.
resubmitted.
but just for general knowledge, variances expire. If you get one and you don't do anything, eventually it expires, so they're trying to look up what that expiration date is.
I appreciate that. That would
Yeah.
make a difference for us
Prob-
and
you-
how we shift
You don't
our
anticipate that
projects.
happening, but
No, but it'd be good to know that.
it could happen.
Well, the other thing, if we approve the variance, they
Yeah.
can still come back a week later and ask for a different variance.
Yeah.
If we deny it, they can't come back for 6 months.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we tried to
that's,
address.
yeah.
So there is an expiration date in the zoning ordinance on a conditional use permit. There is no similar section for a variance.
Really?
So potentially something we might want to
Take a note,
write in there.
something we want to,
This is an ongoing process. We
It's-
learn things as.
we do this
so-
all the time. Yeah. You know, how thick is the ordinances, this thick? Yeah. So when you change one part, it, ripple effect it. And you can't keep, that's why they have it in front of them and they look back and forth because they don't have it memorized. We wouldn't expect anybody to memorize the whole thing. But, so, you want to go ahead?
Okay.
I would entertain a motion.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the variance with a couple of exceptions, that the west setback remains 15 feet, the north setback remains a minimum of 10 feet, and the east setback north of the existing parking lot maintains a 7-foot setback, provided that the existing curb and gutter along the east side of the parking lot remains in place.
Okay, any other discussion? So I have a motion and a second on to approve the variance with restrictions.
Conditions.
Thank you. Conditions. And, so all in favor say aye. All opposed? Got your variance.
Do we have to go through that sheet?
Well, thank you for listening to our discussion because it's, yeah, you gotta follow the law, so they're just, yep. You bet. Sure. And so now, let's see. Now we want to adjourn the Board of Adjustment and reconvene the Planning and Zoning. Do we need a motion on that? We need a motion on that.
I move that we adjourn the,
Yep, so moved. Reconvene.
and reconvene.
Yep. Planning and Zoning.
Planning and Zoning Board.
Okay, second? Second. Motion and second, and all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so here we got discussion items. Number 10, possible revisions to ordinance 678 and chapter 15:6, pages 28